Charleston, South Carolina, 1876. The air thick with something worse than humidity. Reconstruction is dying, and everyone knows it. Federal troops are pulling back. The old order is clawing its way back to power, and it's not being subtle about it. Robert Smalls walks down Meeting Street in the late afternoon. He's dressed well, too well, some would say. A congressman now, a man who once stole a Confederate warship and delivered it to the Union Navy. A man who rewrote what was supposed to be possible. But Charleston remembers, and Charleston doesn't forgive easily. 3 white men in rough clothing lean against a storefront. They don't move as Smalls approaches. They don't have to. Their presence is the message. One of them spits tobacco juice onto the wooden sidewalk, directly in Smalls's path. The brown stain spreads across the boards like a warning. Smalls walks around it without breaking stride. His face gives nothing away. He learned a long time ago that your face can be a weapon against you if you let it. Every expression becomes evidence. Every reaction becomes confirmation of what they already believe. The men watch him pass. One of them laughs low and mean. "Congressman," he says, drawing the word out like it's a joke. "Ain't that something?" Smalls doesn't turn around. He keeps walking. This is how it works now. The war is over. Slavery is over. But the war isn't really over, and everyone knows that too. He reaches his home on Prince Street. It's the same house where he was once enslaved. He bought it years ago after the war, after he'd already become famous. The house where his former owner once lived, the house where he once served, now his. That fact alone makes some people angrier than anything else he's ever done. His wife Hannah is in the kitchen. She looks up when he enters, reads his face immediately. "What happened?" "Nothing," Smalls says, and it's true. Nothing happened. That's exactly the problem. Nothing happens until everything happens at once. That night, there's a meeting. Not at the house. Smalls isn't that careless. At a church basement on the edge of town, where black men gather to discuss things that can't be discussed in daylight. Politics, protection, survival. The room is crowded, hot. Men stand shoulder to shoulder, speaking in low voices. Smalls listens more than he talks. He's learned that too. The most dangerous thing you can do is let people know how much you understand. A man named Thomas speaks up. He works at the docks. "They're organizing," he says. "The Klan, they're back or they never left, doesn't matter which." Everyone in the room already knows this, but saying it out loud makes it real in a different way. "They burned the Johnson place last week," another man says. "Out in the country, family barely got out." "They're sending messages," Smalls says quietly. "Testing to see what they can get away with." "And what can they get away with?" Thomas asks. The question hangs in the air like smoke. Smalls doesn't answer. Because the answer is everything. They can get away with everything. The federal government is tired of Reconstruction. The northern newspapers are tired of writing about Southern violence. White Southerners are tired of pretending that things have changed. And tired people make compromises. Tired people look away. The meeting breaks up after midnight. Men leave in small groups, taking different routes home. This too is a skill that's been learned. Never make yourself an easy target. Smalls walks alone. He prefers it that way. If something happens, he doesn't want anyone else caught in it. 3 blocks from his house, he sees them. A group of men on horseback, 6 of them, white robes catching the moonlight. They're not hiding. That's the point. Terror works best when it's visible. They're blocking the street, waiting. Smalls stops. His hand doesn't go to his pocket where he keeps a small pistol. That would be exactly what they want. An excuse, a reason. Instead, he stands still, his posture relaxed but alert, like he's waiting for a streetcar. One of the riders moves his horse forward. The animal's hooves clop on the cobblestones. The sound echoes off the buildings. "You Robert Smalls?" the man asks. His voice is muffled by the hood, but there's an eagerness in it. He wants Smalls to be scared. "I am," Smalls says. His voice is steady, not defiant, not submissive, just steady. "We got a message for you," the man continues. from concerned citizens about your behavior. Smalls waits. He doesn't ask what behavior. He doesn't explain himself. He just waits. "You've been making speeches," another rider says. "Talking about voting, talking about rights, talking about things that ain't your concern." "I'm a congressman," Smalls says simply. "Those things are exactly my concern." There's a pause. The lead rider leans forward in his saddle. "You think that title means something?" he asks. "You think that changes what you are?" "What am I?" Smalls asks. Not a challenge, a genuine question. He wants them to say it, wants them to put it into words. The rider laughs. "You know what you are. You know your place. You always knew your place. Back when you were a boat pilot, you knew how to take orders, how to stay quiet, how to be useful without being uppity." Smalls feels something cold settle in his chest. Not fear, recognition. This man knows him, or knows about him, knows about his past, which means this isn't random. This is personal. "You did good work during the war," the rider continues. "Helped your masters, helped the people who knew how to use you proper. But now you've forgotten. You've started believing you're something you're not." "And what's that?" Smalls asks. "Equal," the man says simply. The word falls like a stone. The other riders shift in their saddles. The lead rider raises one hand and Smalls sees something flash in the moonlight. A rope. Already tied into a noose. "This is a courtesy call," the man says. "Because some folks remember that you used to be useful. Used to know how to behave. This is us reminding you. Helping you remember." Smalls looks at the rope. Then at the man holding it. Then at each of the other riders in turn. He takes his time. He wants them to see that he's not looking away, not flinching. "I appreciate the reminder," he says finally. His voice is still steady, still calm. "Is there anything else?" The question catches them off guard. One of the riders laughs nervously. This isn't how it's supposed to go. Smalls is supposed to beg, supposed to promise to behave, supposed to show them that their power is real. Instead, he's treating this like a business meeting. The lead rider's horse stamps impatiently. "You think you're smart," the man says. "You think you figured something out, but you haven't. You're just a smart boy who forgot that being smart don't change nothing. You're still what you were, and we're still what we are." "I never forgot what I was," Smalls says quietly. "I was the man who took the planter out of Charleston Harbor while Confederate officers slept. I was the man who navigated past Fort Sumter in the dark. I was the man who delivered a Confederate warship to the Union Navy. I was the man who helped win a war." He pauses, lets that sink in. "And I'm still that man." The silence that follows is different than before. The riders exchange glances. This has gone wrong somehow. Smalls was supposed to be intimidated. Instead, he's reminding them of things they'd rather forget. "You got a big mouth for someone standing alone in the dark," one of the other riders says. His voice is angry now, genuinely angry. "You think anyone's gonna help you if something happens? You think the law cares? You think anyone gives a damn about you? I think," Smalls says slowly, "that you're not asking yourselves the right question." "And what question is that?" the lead rider asks. Smalls looks directly at him. "You're asking whether anyone will help me. But you should be asking whether I need help." Another pause. Longer this time. The horses are getting restless. The riders are getting uncomfortable. This isn't going according to plan. They ride off, slowly, making sure Smalls watches them go, making sure he understands that they chose to leave, that they could have stayed. Smalls stands in the street until the sound of hooves fades completely. Then he walks home. His hands are steady. His breathing is steady, but his mind is racing. This isn't the first time he's been threatened. Won't be the last. But something about tonight was different. The way that lead rider talked. The way he knew details about Smalls's past. The way he seemed almost disappointed that Smalls didn't break. This wasn't just intimidation. This was reconnaissance. At home, Hannah is awake. "I heard horses," she says. "Just passing through," Smalls says. He doesn't lie to her often, But sometimes the truth serves no purpose except to create worry. She looks at him for a long moment. Robert, she says, we could leave, go north, you've done enough. No one would blame you. I would, Smalls says simply. The next morning, Smalls goes to his office. It's a small room in a building downtown. He shares it with two other Republican officials. Both white, both Northerners, both increasingly nervous about what's happening in South Carolina. One of them, a man named Fletcher, is reading a newspaper when Smalls arrives. He looks up and Smalls can see the calculation happening behind his eyes. Fletcher has heard something. There's talk, Fletcher says carefully. About you, about last night. What kind of talk? Smalls asks. The kind that suggests you should be more careful. The kind that suggests you're making yourself a target. I've been a target since the day I was born, Smalls says. The only thing that's changed is how visible it is. Fletcher shifts uncomfortably. Some people are saying you should tone things down. Stop making speeches. Stop pushing so hard on voting rights. Let things settle. Let things settle, Smalls repeats. And what do you think things will settle into? Fletcher doesn't answer, because they both know. Things will settle into exactly what they were before, minus the slavery, plus the violence. Who are these people? Smalls asks. These people who think I should tone things down? Fletcher hesitates. Important people, people who could help you, people who could protect you. If I behave, Smalls says. Not a question, a statement. If you're reasonable. Fletcher corrects. Smalls sits down at his desk, opens a drawer, takes out a stack of letters, some from constituents, some from supporters, some from people who just want to tell him he's going to hell. He picks up one letter, reads it again even though he's already memorized it. It's from a former slave in the backcountry, an old man who can barely write. The handwriting is shaky, the spelling is creative, but the message is clear. Please don't stop. We ain't got nobody else. Smalls puts the letter back in the drawer, looks up at Fletcher. I'll keep that advice in mind, he says. Fletcher nods, relieved to have delivered his message, relieved to have done his duty, relieved to be able to tell whoever asked him that he tried. He leaves. Smalls sits alone in the office, thinking. The Klan visit wasn't random. The timing wasn't coincidental. And Fletcher's message this morning confirms it. Someone is coordinating. Someone with connections. Someone who can reach both the street-level terrorists and the respectable political class. Someone who wants Smalls to understand that there's a way out, that he can be left alone, that he can even be protected. All he has to do is stop being who he is. That afternoon, Smalls has a meeting scheduled with a local militia captain, a man named Duncan, white, former Confederate officer, now supposedly loyal to the new state government. But loyalty is a flexible concept these days. Duncan's office is in the old customs house. Smalls walks through the building, past portraits of men who once traded in human beings, past plaques commemorating commerce built on bondage. The building itself is a monument to a system that insisted it was natural, inevitable, God-ordained. Duncan is waiting in his office. He's younger than Smalls expected, maybe 35, clean-shaven, well-dressed. He stands when Smalls enters, shakes his hand. The gesture is proper, professional. But there's something in Duncan's eyes, a calculation, an assessment. Congressman Smalls, Duncan says, thank you for coming. Captain Duncan, Smalls responds, you said it was important. Please sit. They sit across from each other. Duncan's desk is neat, papers stacked precisely, inkwell placed just so. Everything controlled. I wanted to discuss security, Duncan says. Your security, specifically. My security, Smalls repeats. There have been incidents, Duncan continues. Threats. Against various public officials, including yourself. As the captain of the state militia, it's my responsibility to ensure the safety of government representatives. That's admirable, Smalls says. He means it. Or at least he means that it would be admirable if it were true. The problem, Duncan says, leaning forward slightly, is resources. We have limited men, limited capacity. We have to prioritize. Here it comes, Smalls thinks. And prioritization requires cooperation, Duncan continues. Understanding, a willingness to work within the system. I am working within the system, Smalls says. I'm an elected congressman. I vote on legislation. I represent my constituents. That's how the system works. Duncan smiles. It's not unkind, just tired. You know what I mean, he says. I'm not sure I do, Smalls says. Why don't you explain it to me? Duncan sits back. The smile fades. There are forces at work that neither of us can control, he says. Forces that existed before Reconstruction and will exist after it ends. You can work with those forces, find accommodation, find compromise, or you can fight them and end up broken. Forces, Smalls says. You mean white supremacists. I mean reality, Duncan says sharply. Then he catches himself, softens his tone. Look, I'm trying to help you. I'm offering you protection. Real protection. But I need to know that you understand the situation. What situation is that? Smalls asks. Duncan looks at him for a long moment. You're a smart man, he says finally. You've accomplished remarkable things. But you're pushing too hard, making too many enemies, and at some point I won't be able to protect you, even if I wanted to. Even if you wanted to, Smalls repeats. That's an interesting phrase. Don't mistake my meaning, Duncan says. I have nothing against you personally, but there are limits to what's possible, limits to what can be changed, and you need to understand those limits. Or what? Smalls asks. Duncan doesn't answer. He doesn't need to. The or what is sitting in the room with them, invisible but present, unspoken but understood. Smalls stands. Thank you for your time, Captain. Think about what I said, Duncan urges. I'm serious about the protection, but it has to be mutual. Smalls walks to the door, stops, turns back. Can I ask you something? Of course. Last night, 6 men on horseback stopped me on Prince Street. They were wearing hoods. They had a rope. They delivered a very similar message to the one you just delivered. Duncan's face doesn't change. Not quite. But something flickers in his eyes. Recognition. Or maybe just confirmation. That's unfortunate, Duncan says. I hope you reported it to the authorities. You are the authorities, Smalls says quietly. Another pause. Duncan looks down at his desk. When he looks back up, his expression has changed. Less friendly, more honest. Then you understand the situation even better than I thought, he says. Smalls leaves, walks out of the customs house, into the afternoon sunlight. The street is busy, people going about their business, merchants, workers, families, life continuing as if everything is normal. But nothing is normal. Everything is negotiated. Every interaction is a power calculation. Every moment is a choice about who you're going to be. He walks to the docks, stands looking out at Charleston Harbor. The same harbor he navigated in the dark on May 13th, 1862. The same harbor where he stole a Confederate warship and changed his entire life. The planter is long gone, sold for scrap after the war, but Smalls can still see it, can still feel the weight of the wheel under his hands, can still hear the breathing of the other enslaved people hidden below deck. His family, his crew, his partners in what everyone said was impossible. A voice behind him says, "Impressive view." Smalls turns. A man is standing there, white, well-dressed, older, maybe 60. He's looking out at the harbor, not at Smalls. I used to own a ship, the man continues. Traded cotton, rice, other goods, made good money before the war ruined everything. Other goods, Smalls thinks. That's one way to say it. The war didn't ruin anything, Smalls says. It just stopped letting you profit from what should have been ruined a long time ago. The man turns to look at him now. Really look at him. You're him, he says. Smalls, the one who stole the planter. I didn't steal it, Smalls says. I liberated it, and myself, and everyone on board. Semantics, the man says, but impressive nonetheless. I've always wondered something about that night. What's that? Were you scared? When you passed Fort Sumter, when you gave the Confederate signals, knowing that if anyone looked too close, if anyone noticed something wrong, you'd all be dead. Smalls considers the question. It's honest. Maybe the most honest question anyone has asked him in years. Terror, Smalls says finally. Not scared. Terror. The kind that makes your hands shake and your vision narrow. But I didn't let it stop me. Why not? The man asks. Because being terrified and staying enslaved was worse than being terrified and trying to be free. The man nods slowly. I can respect that, even if I disagree with everything it led to. Then you don't respect it at all, Smalls says. You just respect the boldness, the audacity, but not the reason, not the principle. The man smiles. Fair enough. He extends his hand. Richard Morrison, I was a captain in the Confederate Navy. Smalls looks at the offered hand, looks at Morrison's face, sees no malice there, just curiosity, and maybe something like professional appreciation. He doesn't shake the hand. Suit yourself, Morrison says, dropping his arm. I actually came to deliver a message. Everyone seems to be delivering me messages lately, Smalls says. This one's different, Morrison says. This one's from someone who matters, someone who actually has power, not like those fools in bedsheets playing soldier. Who? Governor Chamberlain. Smalls feels something shift. Governor Daniel Chamberlain is a Republican, a Northerner appointed by Grant. He's supposed to be an ally. The governor wants to meet with you, Morrison continues. Privately, he asked me to arrange it. He thought you might be more comfortable if the request came through unofficial channels. Why would I be more comfortable receiving a message from a former Confederate officer than from my own party's governor? Smalls asks. Morrison shrugs. Because I'm being honest about what I am. And maybe he's not. That's uncomfortably perceptive. When? Smalls asks. Tomorrow night, his residence, come alone. 9 o'clock. Alone, Smalls repeats. His request, not mine. If it helps, I'll be there too, as a witness. A witness to what? Morrison looks at him steadily. To whatever needs witnessing. He walks away before Smalls can respond, leaves him standing on the dock, looking out at water that holds more history than anyone wants to remember. That night, Smalls tells Hannah about the meeting. She listens without interrupting. That's one of the things he loves about her. She doesn't panic, doesn't try to talk him out of things. She just listens and thinks. It's a trap, she says finally. Probably, Smalls agrees, but you're going anyway. Yes. She looks at him for a long moment. Why? Because if I don't, they win without even having to do anything. They just have to make me scared enough to hide. And if I'm hiding, I'm not governing. I'm not representing. I'm not being what I was elected to be. And if it really is a trap, Hannah asks, if you don't come back? Smalls takes her hand. Then you take the children north. You go to Philadelphia. You find the people I've written to. They'll help you. Robert, she says. Just his name. But there's a world of emotion in it. I have to go, he says quietly. You know I do. She does know. That's the worst part. She knows exactly why he has to go, and she knows that knowing doesn't make it any easier. The next day moves slowly. Smalls attends to normal business, meets with constituents, reviews legislation, writes letters. Everything ordinary, everything routine. But underneath there's a current of anticipation, like waiting for a storm that you can feel in the air but can't quite see yet. At 8:30 that evening, Smalls leaves his house. It's a 15-minute walk to the governor's residence. He goes alone as requested. But he's not unprepared. The small pistol is in his pocket. He's written a letter explaining where he's going and who requested the meeting. It's sealed and hidden in his desk. If he doesn't return, Hannah knows to find it. The streets are quiet. Most people are inside. The ones who aren't look away as Smalls passes. Nobody wants to see what might be about to happen. The governor's residence is a large house on the Battery. Impressive. Well maintained. Lights burning in the windows. Smalls walks up the front steps. Knocks. A servant answers. Black man. Older. His eyes widen slightly when he sees Smalls, but he doesn't say anything. just steps aside and gestures toward an interior door. Smalls walks through, finds himself in a sitting room, well-furnished, books on shelves, paintings on walls, the trappings of civilization, of culture, of refinement. Governor Chamberlain is standing by the fireplace. He's a small man, thin, intellectual-looking, wire-rimmed glasses. He looks more like a professor than a politician. But Smalls knows that's deceptive. Chamberlain didn't get appointed governor by being soft. Morrison is there too, sitting in a chair by the window. He nods at Smalls but doesn't speak. "Congressman Smalls," Chamberlain says, "thank you for coming." "Governor," Smalls responds. He doesn't sit, doesn't relax, just stands and waits. Chamberlain gestures to a chair. "Please, this doesn't have to be adversarial." "Doesn't it?" Smalls asks, but he sits. Chamberlain sits across from him. Morrison remains by the window, watching, witnessing. "I asked you here," Chamberlain begins, "because I'm concerned. About you, about the situation in South Carolina, about where things are heading." "Where are things heading?" Smalls asks. "Toward violence," Chamberlain says bluntly. "Toward chaos. Toward the complete collapse of any progress we've made since the war." "We," Smalls repeats. "That's an interesting word. What progress have we made, Governor? Specifically?" Chamberlain removes his glasses, cleans them with a handkerchief. It's a delaying tactic, a moment to think. "We've established a biracial government," he says finally. "We've protected voting rights. We've created schools. We've tried to build something new." "Tried," Smalls says. Another interesting word. "Are you going to debate semantics all night?" Chamberlain asks. There's an edge in his voice now. "Or are you going to listen to what I'm trying to tell you?" "I'm listening," Smalls says. Chamberlain puts his glasses back on. "The federal government is abandoning us. Grant's administration is tired of Reconstruction. The northern public has lost interest, and the southern whites are organizing. You know this. You've seen it. You've experienced it." "I have," Smalls agrees. "Then you know that without federal support, without northern interest, this government cannot stand. We're holding on by a thread, and that thread is getting thinner every day." "So what are you suggesting?" Smalls asks. Chamberlain leans forward. "Accommodation, compromise. We need to find a way to work with the conservative whites. Bring them into the government, give them a stake in the system, make them part of the solution instead of the opposition." "Accommodate them how?" Smalls asks. He already knows the answer, but he wants Chamberlain to say it. "By being reasonable," Chamberlain says. "By understanding that change has to be gradual, that you can't force equality down people's throats, that sometimes you have to accept less than everything in order to preserve something." There it is. The truth underneath all the careful language: accept less, expect less, be less. "And what would I have to give up?" Smalls asks. "In this accommodation?" Chamberlain hesitates. "Nothing permanent, just tactical concessions. Tone down the rhetoric. Stop pushing so hard on voting rights. Let things settle for a while." "Let things settle," Smalls says. He's heard this phrase 3 times now in 2 days. That seems to be the popular advice. It's good advice, Morrison speaks up from his chair. From someone who's trying to keep you alive. Smalls looks at him. "You think they'll kill me?" "I think," Morrison says slowly, "that if the political situation continues to deteriorate, if whites feel like they're being pushed too far, then yes, someone will kill you. Maybe not the Klan, maybe not officially, but someone will decide you're a problem that needs solving, and they'll solve it." "And you'd be fine with that?" Smalls asks. Morrison considers the question. "I'd be sorry about it. I told you I respect what you did during the war, took guts, took brains, but respect doesn't mean I want to live in the world you're trying to create. It just means I recognize your capability." "At least you're honest," Smalls says. "Someone has to be," Morrison responds. Chamberlain stands, walks to the fireplace, stares at the flames. "I'm trying to save lives," he says quietly, "including yours. But I can't do that if you won't help me, if you won't meet me halfway." "Halfway from where?" Smalls asks. From slavery to freedom? So we stop at subjugation, at disenfranchisement, at systematic oppression? From war to peace, Chamberlain says, turning to face him. That's the halfway point that matters. There is no peace, Smalls says. There's just different kinds of war, and you're asking me to surrender in one of them. Chamberlain's face hardens. I'm asking you to be practical. I am being practical, Smalls says. Practically, if I compromise, I lose everything, my credibility, my support, my reason for being in this position. And I still won't be safe, because the people who want me dead don't want me dead because of my policies. They want me dead because of what I represent, and I can't compromise that away. Then you're choosing martyrdom, Chamberlain says. I'm choosing to be what I was elected to be, Smalls responds. You should try it. The silence that follows is heavy. Chamberlain's face is flushed. Morrison is watching both of them carefully. I never asked you to protect me, Smalls says. I asked you to do your job, to enforce the law, to stand up for the principles you claim to believe in. But that's not what this meeting is about, is it? What do you think it's about? Chamberlain asks. This is about you wanting me to give you permission to abandon those principles. You want me to agree that compromise is necessary, that accommodation is wise, that I should tone myself down. Because if I agree, then you can abandon me without feeling guilty. You can surrender to the conservatives and tell yourself it was the practical thing to do, that even people like me understood it was necessary. Chamberlain doesn't deny it, can't deny it, because Smalls is right, and they both know it. The nation is tired of this fight, Chamberlain says finally. You can rail against that all you want, but it's the truth. And when the nation is tired, idealists get crushed. That's just reality. Reality, Smalls says, is that I was enslaved in this city. I was property. I was bought and sold and treated like livestock, and I decided that reality wasn't acceptable. So I changed it. I took a Confederate warship and I sailed it to freedom. And everyone said that was impossible, that it was suicide, that reality wouldn't allow it. He stands, looks directly at Chamberlain. But I did it anyway, because reality is what we make it, and I'm not interested in making it comfortable for people who think I should have stayed enslaved. Morrison actually smiles at that, a small, genuine smile. Like I said, guts. Chamberlain looks defeated, tired. Then I can't help you. You never could, Smalls says. That's what you don't understand. The people threatening me aren't afraid of your authority. They don't respect your government. They're just waiting for you to step aside so they can take back what they think is theirs. And you're going to let them, whether I compromise or not. He walks to the door, stops, turns back. Can I ask you something, Governor? What? When you accepted this position, when you came south to help rebuild, did you believe in it, in the principle, or was it always just a job? Chamberlain doesn't answer, can't answer, because the answer would be too honest. Smalls leaves, walks out into the night. The air is cool, the streets are still empty. He walks home, and with each step he's thinking, this is the system, this is how it works. The violence isn't separate from the politics, the Klan isn't separate from the government. They're all part of the same mechanism. The Klan delivers the threats. Captain Duncan offers protection in exchange for submission. Governor Chamberlain asks for compromise in the name of pragmatism. And if none of that works, Morrison's prophecy comes true. Someone solves the problem permanently. But there's something they're all missing. Something they don't understand because they've never had to understand it. Smalls has been navigating systems of power his entire life. He learned as a child to read the currents, to understand what people wanted, to appear less intelligent than he was, to be useful without being threatening, to survive. And then, on May 13th, 1862, he took all that knowledge and he used it against the system. He didn't fight the system directly. He used the system's own rules, wore a Confederate officer's hat, made the correct signals, appeared to be exactly what he was supposed to be until he was past the point where anyone could stop him. That's the mistake they're making now. They think intimidation will work because it's always worked before. They think compromise will work because reasonable people always compromise. They think violence will work because violence always works eventually. But they're not thinking about what happens when the person they're trying to control has already decided that the cost of submission is higher than the cost of resistance. The next few weeks are tense. The threats continue. More meetings with hooded riders, more warnings, more messages delivered through official channels. Everyone seems very concerned about Small's safety. Everyone seems very eager to help him understand the reality of his situation. And Smalls keeps doing exactly what he's been doing, making speeches, organizing voters, fighting for legislation, refusing to disappear. His allies start avoiding him. His fellow Republicans suddenly have scheduling conflicts. The northern newspapers that once celebrated him now run editorials about the complexity of Reconstruction, the need for patience, the wisdom of gradual change. He's being isolated, systematically and deliberately. One night, Thomas comes to the house, late, after midnight. He's frightened. Smalls can see it in the way he moves, the way his eyes keep darting to the windows. "They came for me," Thomas says. "The Klan, 3 nights ago. They pulled me out of my house, beat me, told me to stop going to those meetings, stop organizing, stop causing trouble." "I'm sorry," Smalls says. "They said you're going to get us all killed," Thomas continues. "They said we need to distance ourselves from you, that you're making things worse for everyone." Smalls nods slowly. This is the next phase. Turn the community against him, make him responsible for the violence, isolate him completely. "Are you here to tell me to stop?" Smalls asks. Thomas looks at him. There's pain in his eyes, and something else. Shame. "I'm here to tell you I can't support you anymore. I have a family, I have children, I can't risk them." "I understand," Smalls says, and he does. Thomas is doing what he has to do to survive. No one can judge that. "Do you?" Thomas asks. "Do you really understand? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're choosing your pride over people's lives." "It's not pride," Smalls says quietly. "It's principle. And if I abandon principle to keep people safe, then what are we keeping them safe for? So they can live as second-class citizens? So they can accept whatever scraps the system throws them? So their children can grow up knowing that their father surrendered? Maybe that's better than growing up without a father at all," Thomas says. He leaves before Smalls can respond. And maybe that's for the best, because Smalls doesn't have a good answer to that. Hannah finds him sitting in the dark an hour later. She sits beside him, doesn't say anything, just sits. "Am I wrong?" Smalls asks finally. "I don't know," Hannah says honestly. "Maybe there's no right answer. Maybe you're both right. Maybe he's right to protect his family, and maybe you're right to refuse to surrender. Maybe those things can both be true at the same time." "That's not very comforting," Smalls says. "No," Hannah agrees, "it's not." Another week passes, then 2. The violence is escalating across the state, attacks on black voters, assassinations of Republican officials, burning of schools and churches. The Klan is operating openly now, not even bothering with the pretense of secrecy. And the federal government does nothing. Grant's administration issues statements expressing concern. Northern newspapers write editorials lamenting the situation. But no troops are sent. No action is taken. The message is clear. The North is done with Reconstruction. Smalls receives word that Congress is in session. He needs to travel to Washington. It's his job, his duty. But everyone knows that once he leaves South Carolina, he might not be able to come back safely. He goes anyway. Washington is different, colder, more distant. His fellow congressmen are polite but reserved. No one wants to talk about what's happening in the South. It's become an embarrassing topic, a reminder of a crusade that didn't work out as planned. Smalls gives a speech on the floor of Congress. He talks about the violence, the intimidation, the systematic dismantling of Reconstruction. He provides specific examples, names, dates, details. The chamber is half empty. The congressmen who are there listen politely. A few take notes. Most look bored. When he's finished, there's tepid applause. Then everyone moves on to other business. tariffs, currency, issues that matter to northern constituencies. Smalls sits in his chair and understands finally and completely that this fight is already over. The decision has been made, not through any formal vote, not through any public declaration, but through the slow erosion of will, through the gradual shift of attention, through the simple fact that most people would rather move on than keep fighting. He returns to South Carolina in late October. The political situation has deteriorated even further. Governor Chamberlain is negotiating with conservative Democrats, trying to form a coalition government, trying to find accommodation. Smalls is not invited to those negotiations. On November 2nd, 1876, there's an election. For president, for state offices, for the future of Reconstruction. Smalls votes early in the morning, watches as armed white men gather near the polling places, watches as black voters are turned away, watches as the system that's supposed to protect rights actively suppresses them. The election is contested. Both sides claim victory. Both sides accuse the other of fraud. Both sides are probably right. But in the end, it doesn't matter who actually won. What matters is who has the power to enforce their claim. And that's not the Republicans. That's not the federal government. That's not the principles of Reconstruction. It's the white conservatives, the former Confederates, the people who never really lost the war, who just waited patiently for the North to get tired of occupying them. In December, a compromise is reached. The presidential election of 1876 is settled by a backroom deal. Rutherford B. Hayes becomes president. Federal troops are withdrawn from the South. Reconstruction officially ends, and men like Robert Smalls are left to fend for themselves. But here's what no one understands. Here's what all those threats and warnings and compromises failed to account for. Smalls doesn't leave, doesn't go north, doesn't surrender his seat. He stays, keeps serving, keeps organizing, keeps fighting. Not because he thinks he can win, but because giving up would validate everything the system claimed about him. That he was only powerful when white Northerners protected him. That he could only succeed when the federal government enforced equality. That without external support, he was nothing. He refuses to prove them right. Over the next few years, the violence continues. Black voters are systematically disenfranchised. The Klan operates with impunity. The state government returns to white conservative control. Everything that Reconstruction tried to build is methodically dismantled. And Smalls remains. Impossibly, stubbornly, dangerously. He loses his congressional seat in 1878. The election is stolen. Everyone knows it. No one does anything about it. But he runs again, and again, and in 1882 he wins. Returns to Congress, serves another term. The threats never stop. The Klan visits regularly, the warnings keep coming. Captain Duncan, now promoted and even more powerful, continues to explain reality to him. Governor Chamberlain is long gone, replaced by men who don't even pretend to support equality. But Smalls keeps existing, keeps serving, keeps refusing to disappear. In 1889, he's appointed Collector of Customs for the port of Charleston, the same port he escaped from 27 years earlier, the same harbor he navigated in darkness. Now he controls it. Officially, legally, impossibly. The appointment infuriates white Charleston. How dare he? How dare he hold such a prominent position? How dare he exist in a space of power? The Klan comes again. Older men now. Some of them probably the same ones who threatened him back in 1876. They deliver the same message. Know your place, accept reality, disappear. Smalls listens politely, then goes back to work. In 1895, South Carolina holds a constitutional convention. Its explicit purpose is to disenfranchise black voters, to make their political power illegal, to enshrine white supremacy in the state's founding document. Smalls is one of only 6 black delegates. He's outnumbered nearly 20-1. The outcome is predetermined. Everyone knows it. But he attends anyway. He gives a speech, talks about the war, about what was promised, about what was sacrificed, about the cost of abandoning those promises. The white delegates laugh at him, mock him. One of them says, "You should have stayed a boat pilot, Smalls." At least then you knew your place. It's almost the exact phrase the Klan used back in 1876. Know your place. Smalls looks at the man who said it, looks at all of them, and he says something that gets recorded in the convention minutes. Something that survives. My race needs no special defense, for the past history of them in this country proves them to be equal of any people anywhere. All they need is an equal chance in the battle of life. The convention votes overwhelmingly to disenfranchise black voters. The motion passes. White supremacy is legally encoded. Reconstruction's last remnants are officially dead. But Smalls remains, keeps living, keeps working, keeps existing in spaces where he's not supposed to exist. He lives until 1915, dies in his home on Prince Street, the same home where he was once enslaved, the same home he bought after the war, the same home the Klan threatened to burn down dozens of times. He's 75 years old. He's outlived most of the men who threatened him, outlived the Klan members who showed him nooses, outlived Captain Duncan, outlived Governor Chamberlain, outlived Morrison, outlived the entire system that insisted he should disappear. And here's the thing that no one quite grasps, the thing that makes his story more dangerous than any speech or vote or legislation. He was never supposed to survive. The threats weren't idle. The violence wasn't theatrical. The system really did want him dead or gone, really did try to make him disappear, really did use every tool available to break him, and it didn't work. Not because Smalls was protected, not because he compromised, not because he found some clever trick or loophole, but because he simply refused to accept the reality the system insisted was inevitable. He didn't fight back with violence, didn't lead a rebellion, didn't martyr himself. He just kept existing, kept taking up space, kept being visible in a world that wanted him invisible. And that's more threatening than any weapon, because if one person can do it, then maybe others can too. And if others can do it, then maybe the system isn't as powerful as it claims. And if the system isn't as powerful as it claims, then maybe it can be changed. That's what the Klan couldn't understand, what Captain Duncan couldn't grasp, what Governor Chamberlain failed to see, what Morrison only dimly recognized. The greatest threat wasn't what Smalls did. It was what he refused to stop being. After his death, there are obituaries, some of them respectful, some of them dismissive. Most of them focus on his theft of the planter, the dramatic escape, the war hero narrative. Very few mention the 53 years that came after, the decades of threats and violence and systematic oppression that he survived simply by refusing to disappear. That's not as dramatic, not as exciting, not as easy to tell. But it's the story that matters, because in 1876 everyone agreed that Reconstruction was over, that black political power was finished, that men like Robert Smalls would be crushed or would flee, or would compromise themselves into irrelevance. And for most people, that's exactly what happened. But not for Smalls. He stayed, he endured, he outlasted. And in doing so, he proved something that terrified the system more than any riot or rebellion ever could. He proved that knowing your place doesn't mean accepting it.